Picture this, a packed press room at Disney's Burbank headquarters. Cameras flash as Bob Iger steps up to the podium, his expression grim. "Good afternoon," he begins, voice steady but tight. "I want to address the elephant in the room. Our Snow White production has been set back significantly, and that delay falls squarely on the shoulders of our lead actress, Rachel Ziegler." The room goes silent. You can practically hear the collective gasp as Iger continues. "Over the past 6 weeks, Ms. Ziegler has missed 7 scheduled filming days we cannot recover. Each absence costs us roughly $500,000 in production, overhead, and crew wages. As you absorb that figure, imagine the ripple effect. Location permits expire, stage rentals extend, and supporting actors stand idle under hot studio lights." Iger doesn't mince words. "When you commit to a studio project at this scale, it's not a hobby," he tells the audience. "We're talking about a legacy property with global expectations. Missing calls days is missing the opportunity to deliver the magic our audiences deserve." Behind the scenes, whispers flew on set. Crew members grumbled about rebooking aerial stunt pickups. Set designers scrambled to maintain continuity when costumes had to be refitted weeks after their initial use. And producers huddled over budget spreadsheets stained with red ink. You, watching this unfold, can sense a production teetering on the edge. One misstep from transforming a fairy tale remake into a cautionary tale about mismanagement. Iger's announcement doesn't just read like a corporate memo, it feels like a public stripping of goodwill. Rachel Ziegler, once heralded as the young talent who would revitalize Disney's storied princess lineup, now stands accused of unprofessionalism at the highest level. Social media ignites instantly. Some fans rush to her defense, pointing to illness and prior commitments. Others demand her immediate replacement to preserve the film's integrity. And so you find yourself at a crossroads. Will this scandal rewrite the narrative of Snow White before it even hits theaters? Or will Disney's swift, unflinching call-out of its own star pave the way for an even bigger backlash, one that could reverberate far beyond a simple production delay? You don't need to be on set to feel the tension seeping through every corner of the Snow White production. The moment Rachel Zegler's absences started piling up, everything on set changed. At first it was a one-off. She missed a morning call time. The next day, she was absent altogether. Then came the no-shows without much explanation. By the time the 5th filming day had to be restructured, people were whispering behind clipboards and walkie-talkies. For the cast and crew, this wasn't just frustrating, it was demoralizing. You're working 14-hour days under bright lights, running take after take, only to be told, "We can't move forward today, our lead's not here." Supporting actors who'd flown in for small windows of availability now found their schedules thrown off completely. Some were rebooked, others were quietly dropped. Assistant directors scrambled to rewrite shooting schedules in real time, trying to salvage what they could from each delay. Makeup and wardrobe departments prepped costumes they never got to use that day. Lighting rigs stayed hoisted above empty set pieces. One crew member described it as organized chaos stuck in neutral. Every time Zegler missed a shoot, it wasn't just her absence, it was a domino effect. Catering was wasted, transportation crews idled, insurance costs ballooned, and resentment started to simmer. For a production this size, every minute has a price tag. And for some of the crew members who depend on tight contracts and day rates, losing workdays because of a star's absence means money out of their pockets. You can imagine the awkward energy in the air when she did show up. Smiles were exchanged, but eye contact was dodged. Conversations were short. The camaraderie that often holds together a major production felt fractured. Cast members reportedly began requesting separate trailers, fewer shared press ops, and more direct communication from producers, not through intermediaries or assistants. By the time Bob Iger made his public remarks, most people involved weren't surprised. You could argue the press conference just confirmed what many already felt, that the situation was out of control, and someone at the top finally decided to draw a line. Now, the big question was, would Disney still push forward with Ziegler as the face of this remake? Or would the behind-the-scenes friction derail everything before the film ever reached its final edit? Within hours of Bob Iger's statement-making headlines, Rachel Zegler responded, just not in the way Disney likely hoped. Instead of issuing a measured press release or appearing with her team for damage control, she took to Instagram Live. You're watching from your phone as she sits in her apartment, bare-faced, visibly frustrated, her voice shaking, not from fear but from what feels like defiance. "It's easy to point fingers," she says, looking directly into the camera. "People love a scapegoat, but I've given everything to this role, and I'm not going to apologize for being human." The stream runs for 20 minutes. She talks about exhaustion, mental health, back-to-back press tours, and unrealistic expectations. "If I miss a day because I physically cannot function, that doesn't mean I don't care," she insists. Her tone wavers between vulnerable and indignant. She doesn't directly address Iger, but the subtext is loud. She feels betrayed. The internet splits instantly. Hashtags like "I stand with Rachel" and "How replace Rachel now" trend simultaneously. Some defend her, pointing to the pressure young stars face in the age of hyper-scrutiny and non-stop media cycles. Others don't buy it. "She knew the job when she signed the contract," tweets one disgruntled Disney fan. "Millions of dollars and you can't show up to set?" Meanwhile, Disney remains silent, clearly scrambling behind the scenes. PR teams are holding crisis meetings. Agents are on the phone. Executives debate whether this response helped or hurt the situation. From your perspective, it feels like the line between actor and studio has completely disintegrated. This isn't a creative disagreement anymore, it's a public feud. And Rachel Ziegler, whether intentionally or not, has turned herself into a symbol, either of overworked young talent trying to survive a corporate machine, or of unchecked ego derailing a billion-dollar film. There's no middle ground anymore. The press conference and Rachel's live stream might have shocked fans, but not the insiders. Just days after Iger's announcement, internal leaks began pouring into entertainment blogs, and you, the reader, quickly realized this wasn't just a matter of missed filming days, it was systemic. Anonymous sources from inside Disney began sharing stories about meetings that devolved into arguments, creative rewrites sparked by last-minute actor input, and even walk-offs by senior crew. One of the most damning leaks? A production memo from late last year documenting 3 consecutive shoot cancellations due to Rachel's unavailability, despite her team confirming attendance only days prior. The same memo revealed mounting tension between producers and the marketing department, who had started asking if the delays might push back the entire promotional timeline, potentially forcing the movie to miss its international holiday release window. Even more alarming, several scenes had to be rewritten entirely because of Ziegler's feedback. Requests that were greenlit without broader team consultation. Editors were instructed to salvage tone from disjointed footage, reshoot budgets ballooned, and perhaps most surprising, Gadot, one of the film's few steady presences, reportedly declined to reschedule her scenes more than once, citing conflicts, but allegedly hinting at her frustration with the changing direction. You read comment sections filled with disbelief. This is Disney. How did it go this off the rails? The answer? Everyone thought someone else had control until no one did. Just when things couldn't get worse, Disney makes a desperate attempt at PR recovery. They arrange for Rachel Zegler to appear on The View, a controlled environment where she could explain her side calmly, reconnect with the public, and reaffirm her commitment to the project. But if you tuned in hoping for redemption, what you got was something closer to a career implosion. The plan was simple: stick to the script, emphasize mental health, and show grace. Instead, Rachel veered completely off course. Midway through the interview, she began criticizing Disney's handling of the project, subtly implying that creative clashes were due to old minds trying to package a new world. She brought up social issues, called out online trolls, and even mentioned wage gaps. The host tried to rein her in, but the tension was clear. Co-hosts exchanged awkward glances. Commercial break came early. By the time the show returned, Rachel was gone. Escorted off-set, according to a backstage producer, social media exploded. The clip racked up millions of views in hours. Pundits called it the final nail. What should have been a moment of clarity turned into a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with the film. Uncontrolled messaging, fractured trust, and a star unwilling or unable to toe the line. You could feel the studio pulling back. No more interviews, no more statements. Damage control mode activated. As the Rachel Zegler headlines continued to dominate, one figure remained conspicuously absent: Gadot. Cast as the evil queen, Gadot was supposed to bring gravitas, global appeal, and fan loyalty to the Snow White reboot. But while Ziegler was publicly battling Disney and the internet, Gadot seemed to disappear into the shadows. Her silence was deafening. You scroll through her Instagram, no behind-the-scenes clips, no trailer reactions, no red carpet moments. Behind closed doors, insiders reveal Gadot had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the project's trajectory. She had reportedly voiced concerns about the film's shifting tone and how the updated script risked alienating the very audiences Disney relied on. However, unlike Ziegler, Gadot didn't go off script. She stayed quiet, professional, distant. Her team negotiated down her promotional obligations to the bare minimum: one appearance, one press statement, and then nothing more. Meanwhile, the writing on the wall became impossible to ignore. Snow White was a sinking ship. By the second weekend, ticket sales had plummeted by more than half. Major theater chains reduced showings. Word of mouth was brutal. Critics panned the story as confused and burdened by an identity crisis. Parents complained it wasn't kid-friendly, while younger audiences found it preachy and stiff. Faced with financial fallout, Disney made a strategic retreat. Without much fanfare, they announced an expedited streaming release. Normally, a theatrical window runs 60 to 90 days. Snow White was headed to Disney Plus in less than 4 weeks. The shift signaled defeat. Theaters called it a betrayal. Fans saw it as proof the film had failed. And you, watching this all unfold, couldn't help but feel like the magic had truly vanished. Behind the scenes, execs stopped asking how to save the movie. They started asking how to prevent this from ever happening again. By the time the film's Disney Plus debut quietly dropped, the damage was irreversible. What began as a modern reimagining of a beloved fairy tale had snowballed into one of the most public disasters in Disney history, and the consequences were seismic. Bob Iger, Disney's once revered CEO, who had returned to the company as a steady hand, now found himself under fire. Insiders reported that his admission, that Rachel Ziegler had influenced the story's creative direction, was the tipping point. Investors grew nervous, fans grew furious, and stakeholders began whispering that maybe, just maybe, Iger had lost his touch. Within weeks, rumors of his planned departure became official. Iger was stepping down, again. His legacy, once cemented by Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm triumphs, was now blemished by a single miscalculation: Snow White. Rachel Ziegler didn't fare any better. Once hailed as Hollywood's next breakout star, she quickly found herself in career limbo. Casting calls dried up, studios passed, interviews were postponed indefinitely, even projects she had already filmed were quietly deprioritized in marketing materials. While she still had her defenders, those who praised her for speaking up and demanding modern relevance in storytelling, the industry didn't want controversy. And right now, Zegler was radioactive. Behind the scenes, Disney scrambled to rewrite its protocols. No longer would a single actor have outsized influence on a project. Internal documentation began circulating about the Ziegler Clause, a guideline preventing major creative changes unless greenlit by executive review. It wasn't official policy, but the message was clear: never again. For you, the observer, it's clear this story was never just about one film. It's about the clash of nostalgia and modernity, of risk and restraint. Snow White became a turning point, a corporate cautionary tale, and its legacy may shape Disney's future more than any remake ever could. But by then, the damage was done. She wasn't trending because of her performance. She was trending because she had become the face of a cultural divide, one she never asked to represent. It left Rachel completely exposed. Every misstep was magnified. Every clip taken out of context became a headline. And the more she tried to hide, the louder the criticism grew. Some fans stayed loyal, defending her intentions and calling the backlash misogynistic and unfair. But for the majority, Rachel's persona had already been cemented. Not as a princess, but as a problem. The film's marketing campaign, already shaky, now became almost irrelevant. Nobody was talking about the visuals or the story anymore. They were talking about Rachel Zegler versus the world. And the pressure wasn't just public, it was internal too. Sources close to the studio claimed that some Disney execs began quietly shifting focus away from Ziegler and press materials, leaning harder on visuals, Gal's villain role, or the film's epic CGI. Anything but Rachel. She had gone from poster child to PR liability in a matter of days, and it all stemmed from a few old quotes, resurrected at the worst possible time. Began gaining traction. Something was seriously off between Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot. What had once been whispered gossip among set insiders was now being dissected by fans and entertainment blogs. The subtle glances, the lack of public support, the noticeably separate interviews during press runs. It didn't take long for the internet to do what it does best: connect the dots and blow it up. Clips started resurfacing, one where Rachel praises the production's feminist vision, and another where Gal, in a separate interview, cryptically states, "I think some stories work best when they stay timeless." To fans, it felt like a cold rebuke. Soon, a narrative emerged. Gal Gadot was quietly distancing herself from the film, and maybe even Rachel. And then came the alleged leak from inside the studio. A now viral anonymous tip published by a gossip site claimed that Gal had voiced concerns about Rachel's attitude on set, and even warned Disney about the backlash the film could face if it leaned too far into rewriting the original story. The implication? Gal had tried to warn them, and Ziegler didn't listen. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The public ate it up. Suddenly, Rachel's emotional outbursts and progressive comments were being contrasted with Gal's polished professionalism. Twitter threads emerged painting Rachel as immature and overzealous, while Gal was framed as the seasoned vet who kept her head down. Memes labeled them the overachiever and the escape artist. It was brutal.